Questions around the use of female hormone replacement therapy for years have kept women on the fence about these treatments. But in a new Wall Street Journal opinion piece, FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary says that it is time for drug manufacturers to remove black box warnings from these products because they've inappropriately scared women off. FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary joins us this morning to go more in depth on this. And Commissioner, thank you for being here today. This is a really big deal and something that probably is not talked about often enough, but there was a Women's Health Initiative study back in 2002 that proclaimed that women who use these therapies, estrogen and progesterone, have a much higher risk of things like heart disease, breast cancer, associated other problems. And when the study came out, it cut the use of hormone replacement therapy by almost 50%. What happened? What are you looking at that makes you think we need to rethink all of this?
Well, that's right, Becky. That was a real American tragedy. The fear machine that started in 2002 with that headline took on a life of its own. And tragically, 50 million women in the United States since then have been denied, not offered, or convinced to not take hormone replacement therapy when they go through menopause. And what happened back in 2002 was that the study went to the media. The authors took it to the media and they broadcast scary headlines about it causing breast cancer and increasing cardiovascular disease complications, when in reality, no subsequent clinical trial has ever found that hormone replacement therapy increases breast cancer mortality. And the cardiovascular complications are a function of when you start hormone replacement therapy. When it started more than 10 years after the onset of menopause, then yes, the cardiovascular complications invert the risk-benefit ratio to make it unfavorable. That is, that there are cardiovascular complications. It needs to be started within 10 years of the onset of menopause. And when it is done that way, it dramatically reduces heart disease. In one study, a 30 to 50% reduction in heart disease, and in another study that just came out 2 years ago, a 48% reduction in heart attack deaths. Well, heart attacks are the #1 cause of death in women, and that's just one of the profound long-term benefits of hormone replacement therapy, on top of alleviating the symptoms of menopause, the hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, weight gains. There are 50+ different symptoms of menopause. 80% of women experience them. It is not like I was taught in medical school where, oh, some women go through those symptoms, but they usually last a few years and they're mild. No, they can be severe. 80% of women experience them, and they last on average 8 years. And when you look at the long-term benefits alone in reducing cognitive decline by up to 64%, reducing Alzheimer's by 35% in some studies, and reducing the rate of bone fractures, those long-term health benefits are profound.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty compelling argument for why this should at least be considered and discussed between women and their doctors. Dr. Makary, there was a Yale medicine write-up about some of the flaws, the critical flaws, they said, with that 2002 study by the Women's Health Initiative. Just for starters, they exclusively studied women who were on average 10 years post-menopause with an average age of 63, which is a demographic that's already vulnerable to cardiovascular disease. And secondly, they only evaluated one delivery method, a daily pill that combined both estrogen and progesterone. And I believe the delivery methods have gotten a lot better since then.
That's right. Now there are more identical forms to the intrinsic form of estrogen that a woman's body produces. The slight increase in breast cancer observed, that is breast cancer diagnosed in that original study, was attributed to the type of progesterone used, called MPA. It is no longer a type of progesterone commonly used for hormone replacement therapy. Again, it did not translate into an increase in breast cancer mortality. If you look holistically, arguably with the exception of antibiotics and vaccines, there may be no medication that can improve the health outcomes of women on a population level more than hormone replacement therapy. And so this is a message we want people to know. Unfortunately, around that time in 2003, the FDA slapped black box warnings. It was part of a group think. It was a pile-on. It was not scientific or rational. And so we announced yesterday we're going to be removing those black box warnings. We want women to have the right information. All these issues of women's health have not received the attention they deserve in a historically paternalistic, male culture-dominated medical establishment. So in the Trump administration, we're elevating issues of women's health that have been underappreciated, underrecognized, and underfunded. You saw our announcement on IVF a few weeks ago. And so this is, I think, one of the bigger ones that impacts every single woman in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to swing in the opposite direction. I'm guessing you're not necessarily suggesting that every woman should be on this, but it should be a conversation women are having with their doctors, and that there is a much more kind of open and educated discussion that's taking place?
That's right. There are some contraindications, like an underlying predisposing risk to blood clots, somebody with active breast cancer, somebody who may have had breast cancer in the past and their doctor has a concern. But those contraindications are rare. And the vast majority of women who go through menopause, which is 2 million women each year, are great candidates for hormone replacement therapy. It is a conversation with your doctor. We're not promoting a product here, but we are getting away from the fear machine whereby women would pick up these products, they bring them home, and they see this very scary black box warning that is not nuanced as it should be, and they decide not to take it.
Is it simply women who've experienced breast cancer who should be more concerned about this, or women who have had any type of cancer? Because I've spoken with women who've had uterine cancer, who have had bone cancer, other issues, who've thought, I shouldn't do this because I've had cancer.
Yeah, so there are a few types of cancer, and it's the types of cancers with estrogen receptors. Now, every cell in the body has an estrogen receptor, which is why in somebody without cancer, there's sort of brain health benefits to taking hormone replacement therapy. But when a doctor sees a condition where there's an upregulated estrogen receptor that could interact directly with the cancer, they're going to recommend against it, and that's a well-accepted practice. And there are a couple of those well-accepted practices. Doctors generally don't prescribe hormone therapy if you're over age 60 or more than 10 years after the onset of menopause. So that's why it's important for people to have the information when they go through perimenopause early on. You know, 50 million women are really a lost generation who have not experienced the benefits. And for many of those women, they're angry, and they have a right to be angry.
Yeah, I hear that. I feel that. Perimenopause sets in at what age, typically?
Perimenopause is typically 1 to 3 years before menopause itself, which happens roughly between the ages of 45 and 55. And that's when the estrogen levels intrinsically go down. And it's interesting, you go back to the Mayo Clinic studies in the 1920s, what they noticed is that young women in their 20s who had their ovaries removed for reasons like cancer or part of a hysterectomy, they went on to have severe heart disease in their 30s and 40s. Well, what's going on there? It suggests a profound, powerful cardioprotective effect of estrogen. And that is why the studies now have caught up and is showing us that it is probably one of the most powerful medications a woman can take to reduce cardiovascular disease. By comparison, statins reduce cardiovascular risk by 35%. Estrogen reduces cardiovascular risk in postmenopausal women by 30 to 50%. So this is something that needs to be a part of conversations. Unfortunately, menopause was not taught in medical schools because there was a feeling that, oh, well, the only treatment out there causes cancer, and therefore there's no point in teaching about menopause. And so tragically, we had about 2 minutes of menopause education in medical school. It's something every woman experiences. And as a result of this kind of mismatch, a woman is more likely to be prescribed an antidepressant for a mood swing of menopause than they are estrogen.
Wow. Dr. Makary, thank you for leading up this charge. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope a lot of people are listening.
Thanks so much, Becky.
Thank you.